See, I know that there were people who said they were unable to attend. Can you just check to see, do we have everyone here that said they are able to attend?
Melissa, it's Fran. I had said I couldn't attend, but I just stepped out from my conference and
Thank you.
paid for the whole thing. Okay.
All right, thank you. Kati told me that this morning and I did a little happy dance, so thank you. All right, thank you, Kati.
Melissa, I believe everyone that said that they were going to attend are present.
All right, great. Do you mind doing a roll call, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Dr. Maureen Brummett. Dr. Michael Coyne.
Here.
Dr. Margie Gillis. Kim Healy. Mr. Stephen Hernandez.
Sorry, Kim Healy's here.
Thank you, Kim. Stephen Hernandez. Dr. Melissa Jenkins.
Here.
Dr. Tamu Lucero.
Here.
Fran Rabinowitz.
Here.
Bianca Rivera.
Here.
Susan Wachowski. Christina Tights. Lisa Thomas. Roll call is now complete. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so very much. So as you know, we do have established our learning cultural in a virtual space where you keep yourself on mute unless you're speaking. I do have to apologize. I am sick and I do still have a cough, so I will be muting probably frequently. But the good thing is we have Dr. Hughes and our Chief Academic Officer, Irene Parisi, on the line as well to step in for me at any time. So keep yourself on mute, keep your video on when life allows, use the chat, raise your hand, and then you can use your emotion icons, which I know especially Stephen Hernandez is so good at using from the past. We do, as you see, have some staff here from the State Department of Education. So I'll just turn it over so they can introduce themselves. Dr. Hughes, do you want to start?
Thank you, Melissa. Good morning, everyone. Dr. Charles Hughes. I'm the new Deputy Commissioner for Academics and Innovation, and look forward to working with you all moving forward. Thank you.
All right. Irene?
Good afternoon, Irene Parisi, Chief Academic Officer for the department, and I'm overseeing the center, working in partnership with them. Great to see everyone.
And then Matt always joins us. He's the guy in the background who does the recording and ensures the PowerPoint and everything's going smoothly. So thank you again, Matt. And then Laura Stefan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks, Melissa. I'm Laura Stefan. I'm the Chief of Staff and Legislative Liaison for the department.
All right, thank you so much. I'm so pleased to have such a full house today. So on your screen here, you will see it's just a recap of the areas of reading, which we know in the legislation include the oral language, phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, rapid automatic name or letter name fluency, and reading comprehension. We all know the data too for Connecticut, that approximately 19,500 grade 3 students are not. Oh, yes, Maureen. Yes, thank you so much. Maureen Brummett is in attendance. Approximately 19,500 grade 3 students are not proficient in English language arts, and the composition of these students, 11,700 are in our Alliance districts, while the remaining almost 8,000 are across the state. 8,000 of these numbers are English learners or multilingual learners or students who are receiving special education, but the remaining 11,400 are identified as neither. And Lisa Thomas is here as well. So Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. Over 3,000 are Black African American students, and over 8,000 are the Hispanic Latino, and over 6,000 are white. So here's just a recap of the data. And here is what we're talking about today. Actually, two prongs. So first, the right to read summarized. As you know, with the original right to read legislation, districts, well, first of all, the center was established and our commissioner immediately got to doing that and established the Center for Literacy, Research, and Reading Success. In October, we all consulted on the first legislative mandate, which was around the programs and the curriculum models. Many of you served as reviewers during that period. And from our review process, we came up with 7 that were on the Connecticut approved list. Excuse me. Which are both programs and curriculum models. Then newer legislation came along because all of us were saying how it'd be really nice to have a little bit more time for districts to actually implement this legislation. And the legislators were thrilled to hear that and extended the date till July 1 of 2025. So it gave all of us and the districts time to actually implement this in a way that is a little bit more supportive for our districts. Part of this legislation did say that the commissioner may grant a waiver in consultation with me, the director, to implement a comprehensive program or curriculum model other than one of the 7 that were listed. And as you know, we had the waiver process. The waiver process started in December of 2022. When we worked very closely with Executive Director Fran Rabinowitz, as well as CAPS, to develop the waiver process. We really leaned in, listened to what were the superintendents expecting kind of this waiver process and adhering to the legislation, as we all know. In May of 2023, we collected and finalized our collection of all the waiver applications, and we contracted with PCG. This was very purposeful in that one of the people that works with PCG actually did the Colorado process and assisted that state with their process. Sorry. We are not the only state that has this legislation in place. So it was nice to have an organization that, one, had no ties to Connecticut or any of our Connecticut districts, and 2, experience in this area of what are scientifically based, evidence-based materials, right? So we also have worked with PCG on ReadCon, and from the waiver application process, we were able to pull together some information that can then feed our professional learning and assist the field in some of the consistent questions that people had around literacy. So that started in May, and then June through August, PCG trained their reviewers. There was a group of reviewers. Many districts met 2 of them, 2 of the representatives, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But there was a team of expert reviewers. They and I reviewed all of the submitted documents. There was a question because many of the districts, they put into their waiver lists of programs. But what they neglected to add were the publishers of the programs and dates of when the programs were published. So we reached out to all the districts at that time, asking that they supply us with this information so we could make a more thorough review. So thank you once again to all those districts who responded so promptly with that information. Then over the summer, while we were doing the reviews, the commissioner and I were really hearing from the field who submitted the waivers. They would like to actually meet with the reviewers. So we scheduled one-on-one review meetings with each of the districts. Some of the districts chose not to do one of these, which was fine. I did call and confirm to ensure that those who did not respond really didn't want a meeting. So we had 76 meetings with the districts one-on-one. Prior to each meeting, the districts received individualized questions and information about the waiver review to that date. Because once again, we were using those in-person meetings as other opportunities to gather information around the waiver applications that they had submitted. So those were wonderful and amazing. We so appreciate all the effort and energy that the districts put into those meetings. Some people chose to do a PowerPoint. Some chose to show documents, and others spoke to the questions. And in all three different methods, we were able to gain additional information and better understand what some of their questions were and what some of our questions were today. So thank you once again for everyone. Then in November, we determined the status of the waivers, and today is December 1st. So letters will be going out later today around the status of the waivers. So information will be forthcoming. As part of this process, we had discussed along the way, as you know, that other programs and curriculum models hopefully would bubble up that could then become models for the state to utilize. So that's why we're meeting here today, to have this conversation about those that bubbled up so that all districts and charter schools, these could be added to the list for them to look at and review and see if it was a good fit for their district. So adding to our approved list. Here you'll see two programs. These are very comprehensive on their own, where supplemental materials would not be necessary. So a couple districts put forward Benchmark Advance for the review, as well as Open Court. So here are two that we would like to put forward to add to the list. Now the second bucket came from districts as compendiums. These are curriculum models of programs that were put together in a comprehensive way that addressed all areas of the legislation. So by doing these together, you are providing for the students, you are adhering to the legislation of the requirements of utilizing all the areas, as well as having a comprehensive core program as stated by the legislation. And once again, these were put forward by the districts in their waivers. So Savvis Learning ReadyGen with Wilson Foundations. The Wilson Foundations is the phonics program that goes very well with Savvis and what they are using toward the phonemic awareness, the fluency, the comprehension, the vocabulary. Great Minds, Wit and Wisdom, which is our comprehension and our vocabulary, with Curriculum Associates, Magnetic Reading Foundations, which covers the other areas. Another compendium people may choose to do. So once again, you can't really just pick and choose. It would have to be the bundle together. So it would be Great Minds with Curriculum Associates, or Great Minds, Wit and Wisdom with Geodes, which is a fluency piece, the Heggerty, and the Foundations. So in this way, having these comprehensive, this all together, you then are teaching each of the areas in a very comprehensive way. Another would be the Wit and Wisdom with Geodes, Heggerty, and UFly. Many districts are currently using the UFly materials, and they have been found not only by us as well as the Heggerty as being meeting expectations. Then you also could do, because wait, there's more. So Wit and Wisdom with the Great Minds, and also with Heggerty, and then Wiley Blevins from Phonics to Reading. So these are the Great Minds compendiums. And then we have more. We also have open up resources with bookworms. So instead of using Wit and Wisdom, districts could use bookworms with the Magnetic Reading Foundations. They could use the bookworms with Geodes, Heggerty, or Foundations. They could use the bookworms with Geodes, Heggerty, and UFly. Or they could use the bookworms with Geodes, Heggerty, and the Wiley Blevins. Dr. Hughes, is there anything that I have neglected to mention to date or anything you think I should be clarifying before? I'll go back
Thank you,
to this one.
Melissa. Yeah, thank you very much, Melissa. I think one just point of emphasis is that as we're looking at the programs and through the recommendations to accept these as compendia, the important piece is that they are constructed as the unit. They specifically work well in a systematic way together. So they are as presented. For example, the third bullet down, you can see the wit and wisdom with geodes, Hegarty, and foundations. The idea there is that those programs work well together and should be seen as a unit, albeit there are some mixing and matching that also works here, but we're making the recommendation that these be, each bullet be a unit of programming that fits together to meet the standards of the legislation.
And to assist districts with the lift of the student privacy laws, we are going to be talking, we have put out requests of saying that we are thinking about adding you to our list. If we are going to be doing this, you need to be compatible with the law for student privacy, and they are all in order and putting in their documents with our friend Doug Casey to ensure that they are signing our student privacy laws here in Connecticut. Usually what districts have to do is on an individual basis, work with each of the vendors. So once again, to help with that lift, as we did the first time, we are reaching out to ensure they're following our student privacy laws. Irene, is there anything that you would like to add? And then we can take questions from the group.
Thank you, Melissa. No, I believe you succinctly shared the latest update as a result of this waiver process. So thank you very much for the clear information.
All right, thank you. Fran, I see that your hand is up.
Yes, just a quick question. Will you, and I thank you for your work, will you be able to share this PowerPoint with the Reading Council? Just because it will be helpful, I'm just speaking for myself, to have it to just reinforce with my members.
Absolutely, yes. So as always, we are recording this. The recording is posted and we will be posting the PowerPoint as well. But yes, we will definitely not individually, but we will mail it to all of you, email it to all of you.
Thank you.
Right after the meeting. Absolutely, thank you. Yep. And once again, I mean, the compendiums really came about, and shout out to Fran and CAPS for asking us to really consider this grouping. So thank you so much for that. Because of that, we were able to add so many more possibilities to the list. Oh, Mike, I'm sorry, hand up.
Yeah, no, first, thank you for this. It's really great for you to have scheduled this meeting to share this with us, and it's really helpful and to get to see this information. So, I mean, I think the big question that a lot of us had, and I had, was, you know, whether there was going to be, again, sort of combinations of different platforms or resources were going to be recognized as kind of meeting the comprehensive goal of this legislation. And so it's great to hear that that these combinations are kind of being accepted. And again, it kind of seems to me like breaks down that you have to have, right, some sort of resource that's supporting oral language comprehension vocabulary, and then an other component or components that are addressing the sort of foundational skills, so that together both of those result in a kind of comprehensive approach. I don't know if you can answer this right now, but I'm just curious of, you know, a sort of general sense of if this sort of compendium approach was something that is going to be there's a fairly large percentage of districts that have kind of taken this approach to their you know, how is this represent just a few districts, or is this a number of districts that these will be? Yeah.
So I'm not going to ask you to repeat, but I was coughing a lot. So Dr. Hughes, do you mind answering his question since I missed so much of it? Apologies.
Sure. Yeah, sure. So I believe the question was related to do these compendium arrangements represent a large number of districts who submitted waivers? Without giving you an exact percentile, I will say that many districts in their waiver submissions included arrangements that were partially in alignment with what you see in front or fully in alignment with what you see as a part of the collections.
Mm-hmm. And so moving forward, sorry, just a quick follow-up. So moving forward now, these combinations now are approved combinations that other districts could adopt, or are these sort of unique combinations that are approved for specific districts?
These will be the approved for use by all districts. That's the intention, is to gather your consultation here.
Great. Thanks so much. Again, this is really helpful.
And thank you, Dr.
If I
Hughes, for
may-
taking that. Sorry about that, Mike.
If I may, Dr. Hickey.
Sure. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, this is
Good to
Steve.
hear
I'm
you.
so sorry I'm joining late, but another thing I think that this does by showing that there are possibilities and that there is flexibility with the right assistance and the right support, I think is critical, right? And to show not only are these adaptations accessible to you, but adaptation is accessible to you, right? And that's why this waiver was so important, because we have to be flexible for new ideas, new opportunities, and quite frankly, new products with a small p, right? That may be available to, and resources that may be available to districts. So that's what I think is important to showcase here, but underscoring the critical importance of continuing to resource the technical assistance that made this possible.
Thank you, Stephen. And I do see Kim's hand is up, and then Lisa.
Hi.
And then
Yeah.
Maureen.
Okay. Can you hear me? No?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, I'm talking. Okay. Sorry. I couldn't tell. So I guess I just have a quick question about all these that you added. Did they go through the same review process as the other programs? Did you have, I mean, I don't remember having, the focus groups, with all the different, so you're saying yes, I see you're shaking your head. So we can request to have all that data that, you had for all the other programs and the 3 different reviewers and all that stuff was done?
Absolutely. So it was different in that this was the waiver process. So the first was simply reviewing programs that were core and comprehensive. And we used a very specific rubric for that we had adopted and adjusted from the Curate Massachusetts state process. As you know, they are another state who has programs in place, state approved programs in place. For this process, it was the waiver process, and the waiver tool that was utilized, everything is posted. The waiver tool is posted, not filled in for each district, but the waiver tool is posted on the center website. Because the commissioner, it was very important. Everything was very transparent. That tool was created based on the waiver application and the legislation. So it hits on the legislation and the waiver process. So it is a different tool so it looks different, I guess is what I'm trying to say, than the first one, but it encompasses all the pieces of the legislation and the law. But yes, absolutely. We have, and districts will be receiving their individual waiver tools. Those waiver tools were filled out not only based on their applications, but like I said, also information that was gathered during the one-on-ones. And I know that this was not the intent to talk about the waivers, but I do want to say to districts who are receiving their letters, if you have any questions, we really, reach out to me, reach out to the center. As Stephen said, we are going to be having a lot of technical assistance and professional learning in place to assist districts with moving forward. So Kim, did I answer your question? Or
not really, because
okay.
I guess my concern is that these have not been as thoroughly vetted as the original 7. that we approved?
Oh, they were thoroughly
I mean, that was a much,
vetted.
okay.
Thoroughly vetted. And like I said, this time we did not use Connecticut reviewers, since some of our Connecticut reviewers actually did put forward waivers. We wanted to make sure that there was no confusion there. So no, these were thoroughly and then triangulated as we did before with Ed Reports, Colorado, Massachusetts. So if you go to those sites, you can see what
But
the
nobody from
reviews
the
came up there.
council was asked to review them as they were for the first. So that's, I
Correct.
guess, the difference is what I'm saying. So none
Yes.
of us who are, official council members were asked to do any of these reviews.
Correct. The only one that did it from Connecticut was myself with PCG. We wanted to make sure that, well, it was really important for the commissioner to use someone nationally. And once again, PCG is national. They have experience with review processes, like I said, with Colorado. And
But
we
why were they
hoping-
okay for this process, but not the original 7, right? I mean, we trusted Connecticut people to pick the original, but we didn't
Mhm.
for this process.
Well, I think that it would have been, I can't think of the word right now, but a conflict. That's the word I'm looking for. Quite honestly, a conflict, because like I said, some of the reviewers from before, their districts submitted waivers. So we were not comfortable, because I don't want later someone to say, oh, this person, their waiver was met expectations, but they were one of the reviewers. So we wanted to make sure this was a really clean process. Dr. Hughes, I see you're unmuted. Did you want to add to that?
Just wanted to kind of align this to the blind review process that you would typically see in the research field, where you're removing the bias from the evaluation. So as Melissa had identified, these individuals are experts in the field with a substantial knowledge base from which to evaluate these programs. And they have no interest in which programs, which districts, how it is satisfied. It was an attempt to remove the bias from the evaluation process.
Thank you so much. That was very helpful. Lisa, you have a number 2, so you're next.
Thank you. So I have a question and a thank you. So I think I understand from what you said that the notifications are going out to districts today as to whether or not they've been granted a waiver.
That is the intention.
And that's what prompted today's kind of last minute meeting, which I understand that hopefully the intent was to inform us before waivers went out. And will the council also receive a list of districts who are granted a waiver so that we can respond if we get phone calls from districts?
Yes, I believe it is the intention for us to make clear those the status of each district. That will not be, the districts need to receive their information first, though, out of respect for the process and the individuals who submitted their waivers.
And then I just want to thank those on the council who advocated alongside of me for several things. One, funding. I know that I harped on that many times, including going to various hearings to talk about that. Unfunded mandates are a real problem at times in education, because then we're faced with making choices between one baby or the other. I want to thank those who advocated for and provided assistance to the districts. It's really good to know that that one-to-one was provided for districts who requested waivers. Hopefully that provided some reassurance to those districts. I want to say thank you for the flexibility, as we asked for considering combinations of resources as opposed to singular approved programs. I know some of us expressed concern about continuing to adopt a single commercial program, since that's part of what got us to a bad place to begin with. And I know that overall, hopefully this is going to send a message to educators who are the boots on the ground that their work is valued and that we have been listened to. A lot of what I have heard over the last couple of years is, why is nobody listening to us? Why is nobody listening to our expertise in the classroom? Including, folks who were saying, or educators who were saying, what we're doing isn't working and we need to make a switch. So I know that this hasn't always been an entirely smooth process, which is good in a democratic conversation. And I appreciate where we've ended up.
And Lisa, I just want to reiterate one important piece, the responsiveness that's also matched with the high expectations that the legislation has outlined for the areas of reading.
I'm confident that professional educators will meet those expectations.
Maureen is next, and then Kim again.
All right, thank you. And will we get this PowerPoint today?
Yes, as soon as we're done with this meeting, I'll PDF it and ask Kati to send it to everybody.
And I'm wondering if I heard it correctly, the alternative compendiums, you need to follow those hook, line, and sinker. You can't switch between them. And did the committee identify, like, for example, some of these I'm familiar with, some of them I'm not, open resources, bookworms? Can there be clarification about whether that's a comprehension piece? I know you've really tried to align these to science of reading, but it'd be helpful to know which one of these serves what master. Some I know, but some I've not heard of before. And then
yeah, that's excellent. Thank you so much. Yes, so that is the comprehension vocabulary piece. We did have a grid, but because the grid isn't what's the word? I'm so sorry. Accessible. That's it. Accessible. We couldn't show the grid. So we had to write it out like this. But the grid did show comprehension, vocabulary. So I hear what you're saying and I appreciate that. We can do that. Thank you, Maureen.
So no problem. And then, yeah, because it'll be helpful for folks who might already use some of these, but not all of them. And my last question is the header on the slide says compendiums of curricular models or programs. It looks like these are all programs. Are some of these like district curriculums, and will we be able to see the full iteration of that for reference?
So the ones that were added, it's really interesting. Some programs call themselves curriculum models or curriculum, and others call themselves programs. So this is just really aligning to the legislation. So the legislation says that curriculum models or programs. And what I did the last time is with our list, I did go through and kind of put down which one considers himself a curriculum, which one considers himself a program. But once again, when you put them together, like the Great Minds Wit and Wisdom, geodes. So the Wit and Wisdom is the comprehension vocabulary, the geodes, the fluency, the Haggerty, the phonemic awareness, the foundations, the phonics. When you put them together, whoops, they are created in a way that they are made to go together, and therefore it makes a comprehensive curriculum because they go together, or a comprehensive unit.
Okay, so these really all are programs, but districts that you have received waivers from are combining them as such to create a compendium. And then my last question is, some of these are very pricey, geodes, because we use those in some of our schools. Where with the current Right to Read grant, it doesn't cover, wouldn't cover all of this. Where is there other resources coming our way, or how will districts afford this going forward?
So great question also. We have been talking to legislators, Black and Puerto Rican Caucus. They're fully aware that funding is necessary. As Lisa said, she too, and any of you could be advocating for more funds, and none of us would be upset by that. So yes, we are advocating for funds. Legislators know that there's a need for more funds. You know, once again, we did get the 20-something million, which we so appreciated, and did push out to the districts, retaining some for the professional learning and supports that will be coming to districts as a result of this process. And then also our commissioner really wanted to support small towns who often get overlooked just because of their numbers. So those districts under 1,000 were granted from ARP-ESSER additional funds to support. So yes, fully aware. Thank you so much for saying that. And we'll continue, all of us, to advocate. Dr. Hughes, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of clarify, Dr. Brumman, I believe your question related to can grant funds be used with these programs that are listed here in front of us? Is that kind of the nature of your question? Now that we add these to the list, districts now can utilize the grant funds to purchase items on this list? Is that kind of what your question was related to?
No, I had already heard
Okay.
that in a previous discussion that once something's approved, it's eligible for use of the Right to Read grant. My concern is, like, my district only got $100,000, and I know that having purchased geodes in the past, that's not even going to touch it for, you know,
the cost,
your
right?
Extension. Yeah, and not to mention some of the other programs. So that is a significant concern. And I guess while I still have my mic open, it says partially implement next year and then fully by 2025. Do we have to do an additional request for extension if we're going to go that route of partial next year and then full in 2025, or is that just the way it is? Everyone gets that protocol?
Yes. Yeah, they actually, with the legislation, they did remove that piece about the extension requests, because everyone is now getting this until 2025 to be fully implemented.
And just I can respond to the question on the partial implementation. Melissa, will you go back to one of the compendium slides? If a district is implementing any part of a compendium, so for example, let's say that I am currently utilizing Wilson and Heggerty and Geodes, but not Wit and Wisdom, I'm actually satisfying the expectation of legislation of partially implementing, right? Because I have components that are in route of meeting the expectation. I would then have to add the Wit and Wisdom or the bookworms, depending upon the choice in the district, to then become fully in alignment with the legislation by 25-26.
So that's a statement, not a question?
That's a statement.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you. And can the district use, I know they have to use a compendium, can they add to the compendium, or are they restricted to only using what's explicitly listed in the compendium?
So the approved comprehensive core would be these. So what we could do is, you know, my staff and I are at the ready, and we can individually meet with districts to assist them in the process of next steps. So if you have a specific program or curriculum model that you're currently using that you would like to continue using, we could have that conversation about, is it scientifically evidence-based, or is that something that you would need to be looking here? The reason I'm putting this up, before I forget with my sick brain, apologies, districts were very thoughtful in that, yes, absolutely, things are going to cost money. It's going to be a load in the front. We all understand that by teaching comprehensively, it will actually save money later, because not so many students will be identified as special education, which could be a lift later. But some of these, the open up resources for ELL education and for bookworms, are actually free. They do have the option there where you can buy like teacher manuals and things like that, but they are available in an open source kind of arena. So that's just another thing to be thinking about. We were trying to be very thoughtful in addressing so many of the concerns of the district. So thank you so much, Dr. Bowman. All right. Oh, Dr. Lucero.
Hello, how are you? So one of the concerns that I'm hearing is when we put in, or when districts put in for the funding source and listed what they were going to purchase and added in things related to professional development, it seemed the only thing that was acceptable with professional development was the actual providers through the different program companies. My wondering is, now that you're allowing the connection of different companies, if we should reconsider being able to use resources like, or companies like Hill for Literacy or Literacy How, or such companies like that, who are probably more equipped to help a district to combine different pieces together versus having to go to each of these companies, which I think would become very expensive to try to combine these for each of them to provide professional development for their portion of it.
Thank you so much for bringing that forward. So for those of you who may not be familiar with what Dr. Lucero is referencing, as we talked about, we do have the ARPA Right to Read grant that went to every district and charter school. With the ARPA funds, to support the legislation, there is that requirement that they must be purchasing something that is approved by Connecticut as being that core comprehensive. So this will expand, as Dr. Brummett was mentioning as well, to these components that are going to be put onto the list. Also, because we are not a state who has done an RFP process to actively go out and seek professional learning providers and then have approved professional providers, we have not done that as a state. Some other states have done so, where they put out an RFP, consultants and companies do address the RFPs, and then the states look at and pick and actually have an approved list of vendors. We did not do that. And with the ARPA funds, we're not going to be doing that. So that's why we were able to support professional learning. We were hearing from districts, they wanted support around professional learning. However, with this grant, it does have to be tied directly to the vendors of the programs to provide that. We did have a conversation too with, as you know, we work very closely with UConn, Hill for Literacy, and Literacy How, and we were all in agreement to move forward in that direction. I am not, we are not saying that anybody's professional learning services are not up to standard. With this grant, you may only use the money to support that professional learning that comes from the vendor. We were finding that because of money, some districts weren't putting in the professional learning. And as we've talked about as a council, it is so important that professional learning is not overlooked. You can't just plop a new curriculum or program or set of programs in place without having teachers who are trained and administrators who are trained. So I know I'm being very long-winded, Dr. Lucero, I apologize. I'm just trying to reiterate conversations we've had before. So with this grant, we wanted to support the professional learning, but since we don't have an RFP process set up here at the state to have approved vendors, we did go and say only professional learning from the vendors of the approved programs. So at this time, we're not going to be expanding that to these others who may be a wonderful addition to your district, but you will have to find other sources to do that. And that's the other thing we were hoping, that by giving these ARPA funds, we're actually lifting something off and you're able to braid your funds a little bit differently.
Can I just respond to that?
Absolutely.
This is a short-sighted decision, given the fact that these are companies that want to sell their products and unfortunately are not experts in each other's products. And so now you're putting us in a situation that if a district and I'm not speaking for Stanford because this is not our case. We did not put in a waiver. So I'm just speaking about my knowledge of early childhood reading and the importance of each of these being implemented correctly and with fidelity. And when you are in a situation where you have to work with vendors who want you to use their product for a particular thing and you're not able to, and if I'm a district who says, oh, wow, we have 2 of these and not this one, this one, this one, and I don't know how to fit those together properly, I think we might be doing more harm to ourselves. So I really think this requires more consideration so that, especially if these are going to be posted someplace and a district is able to just say, okay, we're going to choose this one. I speak very strongly about this.
And thank you, Dr. Lucero, so much. I mean, you and I have worked together so closely over these years, and I know how passionate you are and about your leadership. I so appreciate the questions and your comments. So thank you so much. Any other questions or comments? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Dr. Lucero. I saw you.
Okay, I'm just going to push back one more time. Can I ask that this be put on a future agenda item then? Because I think that this conversation needs to happen.
Sure. What specifically are you asking? Are you asking that the state develop?
To look at what guidance we're going to give school districts that are going to adopt programs that brings in several different resources to hit different components of reading. How are we going to make sure that that's being done with fidelity if you don't have people who have expertise in those areas to come in and help coach your district? And you will have to go to individual vendors. In some of these, you will be working with up to 5 vendors, it looks like, that each would need to provide you with the professional development. 1, that's very costly, and 2, they may not have the expertise to understand the fluency piece versus a comprehension piece and how you are marrying those together.
Awesome, thank you. And just so you know too, we do have various contracts in place to do exactly what you're talking about with districts. So we were able to piggyback off of Massachusetts. They did an RFP process, and from their process, Hill for Literacy and TNTP bubbled up to the top. So we're working on contracts with them to assist people with picking exactly what you're saying, programs, and then also to assist in the implementation of what they are choosing. So those are just 2. We're also working with West Ed to continue that, what we started last year. And we are working with the RESCs to have a contract there as well to support each of the districts with what they're choosing, questions they may have, challenges, and some coaching. So yes, we can definitely put it on, and I can go into details about the supports we're currently having, as well as any ideas you have for the future.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions, comments? Once again, I so appreciate you all coming together today. And as somebody said, and I apologize, but I think it was you, Lisa, that was exactly the purpose today. We wanted to inform you of what was going on and give you some information prior to the districts getting their letters, and to ensure, will you be including districts' names? No, we're not going to be putting names onto anything. So do you mean like when we post this to the website? Because I haven't posted it yet. I want to have this conversation. Is that what you mean, Dr. Brummett?
Okay. My wonder is, you had mentioned that districts that use these programs have lower identifications of special ed rates. And I wanted to kind of be able to confer with them to see how they're, because it's not just the program, it's all about implementation as well. I'd like to be able to confer with them about how they're interspersing these or what have you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. What I meant was, and Dr. Coyne, I'm sure he can speak to this, but when you're teaching comprehensively to that tier 1 to all your students, and you are incorporating all the areas of literacy in a scientific evidence-based way, then what happens is that more students are lifted up with their reading skills and do not end up in special education because they were not getting what they needed in that core. Dr. Coyne, can I be explaining this better? Do you have any other words that I could be adding? I don't have specifics about districts here. I just know general research.
Yeah, just I think what you said, the more comprehensive and coordinated. And I think there's research that supports that comprehensive and coordinated tier 1 classroom instruction supports reading achievement. So yeah.
So we can assume that these districts have very high reading achievement. I know we weren't really supposed to submit results, but that I would assume that is part of this, recommendation that these are working well together, and so districts that use them are doing very well with reading with theoretically lower special ed rates, especially if they've been using it for a period of time. That's why it would kind of be helpful to pick their brain about how it's going, what they've noticed about, the impact and the reduction of special ed, or any of those key elements of putting together a quality program. Excuse me.
So we don't have those data right now, but so we are working with the CCERC. That is an organization Ajit Gopalakrishnan has been working with, pulling together universities and colleges here in Connecticut to do research around the ARPA grants. So we are going to be working with those districts who are getting the ARPA grants and utilizing from the list to be collecting data just like that. We have not yet started at this point. As you notice, many of these are new, but not only with our reviews, but also reviews in other states and ed reports. They do have all the elements and they come up as very strong meeting expectations. Okay. I'm glad that you clarified that. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Anything else? Oh, go ahead, Irene. Did you want to say something? Oh, I can read her chat. So her chat said, we hope there's potential in developing a continued community practice with districts as we continue to implement evidence-based reading practices for ongoing learning and collaboration. Oh, she's unable to mute at this time. So yeah, and that's exactly what the RESCs are going to be doing. They're going to be pulling together districts and having these communities of practice and supporting. So we give a shout out to them as well. We are working on that contract. But definitely, if you all feel like, there's other professional learning that needs to be provided, you're hearing based on what you're experiencing, we are really open to those ideas and appreciate them. Any kind of supports. Dr. Hughes, do you want to say anything before we say goodbye?
Just wanted to thank you all for your input, and again, to emphasize that this was a meeting that probably was not on your calendar early. We have been trying to meet with a number of other stakeholders as well in preparation. Some of you are already on this, who are on this meeting were in some of those other stakeholder meetings. So we appreciate that, and we look forward to the additional input around the professional learning. Dr. Lucero, I think that's an excellent point in supporting the implementation. We all know that you can have the materials, but what really makes the impact is its implementation and support. And those community practices and the professional development is something that is the next step in the work to ensure that we're having the intended outcomes with students. So thank you again.
All right, so thank you all so much. Much appreciated your time, your feedback. Based on today, I will be asking our wizard, Matt Falconer, to post and open up our approved program and curriculum model list. All right, thank you all so much, and I will see you in January at our regular scheduled meeting.
Thank you, Melissa, and to everyone.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Dr. Lucero, could you just put in writing